Good morning, everybody. This is Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. It's the Jupyter Frontends and Accessibility meeting. This meeting will be focused on accessibility because it's the first Monday of the month, or it's the first meeting of the month. So we've got a couple of agenda items, and it looks like Andre is up first.
Okay, folks, quick question. So, right, we don't have a formal procedure of the 4.5 release plan. Um, right. I wanted to ask, at some point we discussed that it would be nice to fix scrolling issues in 4.5. These are complicated issues for sure. Not simple to solve. Sorry, I have Zoom UI closes some parts of my screen. So yeah, why I wanted to ask, because I've seen some users commenting in these issues. Um, so there is some interest from the users for sure as well. And also it's the same user, right? It's not like it's 100 different users commenting, but there is some interest from the community as well. It's mostly about the scrolling, about these two issues. So I was just wondering if we should add them to the 4.5 release plan, like formally. Yeah. I don't necessarily myself know how they, would be solved or necessarily have time to concentratedly work on them now. Just kind of wanted to, talk about the release planning.
I already commented that I don't particularly see that we should do that, because like usually adding something to 4.5 would mean it would be only released in 4.5 in the way that we are using the tracking system of milestones. But fixes for this should be as much as possible backported. But if that's about saying we should not release 4.5 without fixing these issues, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I
It
guess.
just needs to be clear what you mean by adding to 4.5.
Yeah, I guess that's would be the result of adding it to 4.5 release plan, as I thought about it, that we commit to not releasing 4.5 before we solve these issues, and of course
Well,
backporting them.
usually that's not what the milestones were used for.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like there is another issue where like there is 20 something upvotes, which is like an unfortunate that people like an issue was solved. There is another regression which has basically very similar manifestation, and there's 21 upvotes. Someone saying that they still experience it with 4.4. The root cause is probably different, but it should absolutely be solved with the highest priority, assuming that someone can work on this. So yeah, there are issues to be solved.
Awesome. I tried to collect in that comment all the issues connected with the scrolling, so I'll edit it and add this issue to the list because I.
So a different point is like we already added to the issue tracking 4.5 that ideally we would replace the rendering implementation of Windows Notebook virtual rendering with something that works better, including edge cases, and there's a proposal to do that. So kind of solving these enhancements would probably fix these issues as well, potentially at the cost of introducing other regressions, because we just didn't try that and don't know. So yeah.
Something, Mike.
Does anybody else have anything on this issue? Any other thoughts?
Just to couch it in accessibility terms, this is like not operable, and it makes content not understandable. It definitely is gonna have a cognitive effect on people. So hopefully this can get sorted. Yeah, it's like, I mean, really, like Jupyter, from an accessibility perspective, Jupyter needs to consider the visual interactions, mouse interactions, and keyboard interactions the most. And the mouse interactions are broken right now. So it can be jarring for certain brains. But I hope this can get sorted.
All right, good. Looks like we have some additional items and under accessibility topics.
I was trying to add something, but the document's too long. Usually, every 6 months, this gets like chunked into an issue or something, but I feel like that hasn't been done recently. So, yeah, I can't add anything to it. But
I think we did that. Like we removed a large chunk recently, and I do not know why it's still there if it was restored.
Does
I will
somebody
go.
want to drive or screen share? We could pull it up if that's helpful.
I just want to stay on the accessibility topic real fast. The tab traps are back. In the new release, you can't get out of a code cell or a markdown cell again, and you can't tab into the outputs. And it would take me multiple hours to write up this issue, and I've already put in a lot of hours on this issue, and so have a lot of other people. So I think it's kind of wild the amount of time that went into fixing tab traps, and it could so subtly come back. But yeah, tab traps are broken again, and I know it's always been a big problem, the keyboard navigation, but this is a really big oversight.
So we don't have unit tests for that, do we? Presumably not, right? I guess if it's broken again. Because that would...
Can you share the issue or demonstrate?
I can demonstrate it. I'll share my screen. And then I'll go over to use Opera. What the? Okay.
I was reviewing a PR for context around that, and didn't see it broken.
Okay. So if I am, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. And this is 7.4.3. Okay. It was working in the 7.3s. So like here I have some form elements like right after a cell, right? And I'm outside the cell now, and if I start hitting tab, it just takes me right into the preview or the prediction. If I escape, then and then I tab again, it just tabs me right back into it. So if I'm using tabs or if I'm using like accessible switches or something like that, I'm gonna get stuck in this. Before, if I was in cell mode, I could tab into the outputs. Now it tabs me right into the input cell, or the code cell, code input, and I need to be able to get out of it. See, I'm just hitting tab. So, and I'm just getting tabs. So it should either hit the form element or the link that's after it, but it's not.
Okay. I will try to open a binder and make sure that I can reproduce that, and I can open an issue for that.
Sure. Yeah, it takes a while with the screen recording and stuff to get you guys a good issue. If I find some time, I will, but I don't really have much of that. Gabriel worked on this issue for months, and it would be worthwhile checking in on that old work and seeing what the expected behavior was. Like there were even some things that were missed with the tabbing, but like basically y'all, I feel like y'all have to rewrite all of the tab interactions and like finding what are embedded controls and stuff like that. So it's
Are you able to share this snippet that you have? Adding
yeah, sure. Yeah,
in the chat.
I'll put this notebook up and I'll share it. Yeah, I'll just put in a gist. There's nothing wrong, bad in it. It's not like a good notebook, but this is one where you can figure out the tabbing behavior. Cool.
All right, I think we got some. We have additional items on. Oh, sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Can we stay on this and try to reproduce this so that we like understand what is happening? Well,
Yeah.
So,
but in the meantime, though, let's also how do we figure out how to test this too, right? Oh, you want just the code snippet, Mike? Got you.
Yep.
Yeah, I got you.
So testing that is pretty easy because you just write a Kalata/playwright test. There
okay.
should be already some.
All right, here is a this. Let me just double check it that this works. Yeah. All right, here's the code. Here's a code cell with just a bunch of. It's an HTML magic.
Okay. Taking that. And can you confirm that you see my screen with 4.4?
We do. We do.
Thank you. Okay. So let me see. Let me start here. I'm at the top of the notebook. I'm doing tabbing. Now I can tap the toolbar. Good. I can tap moving up and down. I can switch between the cells. I can tap to the cell toolbar. Next tab goes to before, after, show all contents.
I don't know why I did that.
Okay. Now, what did you enter the cell? I didn't do that yet. I entered the cell. Now I can type something and press tab. That brings the completer as expected.
Yep.
I press escape, press escape once and press tab and moves me to the toolbar. Cell toolbar, press tab again. It moves me to the output. I think this is the expected behavior, is it?
That is the expected behavior. I don't know if something.
No. Yeah, you use new notebooks, so that's one place where it could be different.
Can you try and pop this out into Notebook and see what that does?
Yeah, that should be very quick.
Because that might be interesting. I could have tried this in lab too, but
okay, so
I'm gonna be embarrassed if this is just on my machine.
732. Okay.
Oh, this is 7.3.
So no. Well, yeah, that's confusing because the lab that I have installed is 4.2, but this gist does not include the notebook 7.4. So I might not be able to reproduce that for the reason that it's just a different version. So
yeah,
maybe this is only affecting notebook. We won't know until someone tests this.
So like all of this was working until my last update, which was 7.4.3. So I was on the 7.3 series, and I wasn't having problems with this.
Okay. So it's plausible that something could have broken because there was a updated code mirror version, and in JupyterLab we applied changes to override new behaviors for code mirror so that it doesn't happen. Maybe the same changes need to be ported to Notebook. Maybe that's the issue. I don't know. We can investigate further, but certainly we have, because this call is recorded, we have your attempt and we saw the issue.
Yeah.
So we can take it from there.
Great. Thanks for the consideration.
Thank you. We have accessibility triage. All right. Well, actually, I think we're on accessibility topics. We covered this first one, right? Yes. So we have additional items under accessibility triage or needs discussion. Does anybody want to lead on this, or should I pull it up?
Sorry, I can discuss the pull request.
Okay.
So there is a pull request which is trying to improve ARIA labels and roles. Let me share the screen so that you can see that. Okay, I think that should be visible now.
Yep.
It's been a couple of weeks of work back and forth. So I think the biggest question around that was around the roles for buttons and around the cells, exactly what we were looking at before. So let me start with the buttons. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom it in so that you can see the div between before and after. So this PR is trying to add a role on the button element, which is a React element that we have. And this results in both JP button, which is a component, web component, and the button itself having ARIA labels. They both have ARIA labels with refresh list, so that's the same. And one of them, like, both of them would have ARIA role. So button natively has a role of button, but JP button would also get a role of button, which you could see right here, and it didn't have that before. And it seems like redundant duplications. And I'm not sure how we should treat this JP button construct. Should we make it transparent? Should we only focus on the button which is in the shadow DOM, or like what is the correct? It's PR 17591. So the PR author argues that because the button itself is hidden away and not accessible, the role should be set on JP button, which is one level above in the hierarchy. So, yeah.
I finally found it. Can you rephrase the question, TLDR the question?
Yeah, TLDR is, let me scroll to the appropriate place here. This button, which will apply to all buttons in every toolbar, currently is implemented so that it has a JP button, which is a web component, with a shadow DOM, which includes a button, a real button. Now, we started adding labels, ARIA labels on both, and now both will have ARIA role, and one of them will not be visible to screen readers, like an implementation detail. Does anyone know how we should handle the accessibility around web components? Should we like make this JP button have a role of a button and potentially remove the extra attributes from the button inside? Should we duplicate everything? How does it work?
I mean, the first rule of ARIA is don't use ARIA, which means that a button, like a natural button thing, is good. But I see what you're saying. So you have a button inside of a button. When you put a button,
one of them is a higher order construct of web components. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know about what happens with Shadow DOM. I can send some links to some articles that talk about the nuances with that. But I feel like it would totally be fine to have JP button, role equals button, get rid of the inner button tag and just have the spans. I feel like that would be totally sufficient unless I'm missing something that would happen in the shadow DOM.
That would probably work. It would probably be a lot of effort to change how JP button is implemented. But yeah, maybe marking it as area hidden if all the information is in the one which is above it.
If all the
structure.
information's in the one that's so where are you going to put aria hidden on?
On this internal button. As I understand, the author of the pull request says that the button itself is not accessible via keyboard, which is true because that's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. So the button needs to get the something that is role button needs to have focus. So that is like if the button element doesn't have focus, then it can't do its thing. So there's a bunch of aria properties that are in that button that would either need to be in JP button to make it work.
Yes, and like this has tab index, it has on click, on key down listeners, so it's acting like a proper button.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so it totally looks like a button, except for the fact that the button's inside of it.
Yeah. Okay. I think the concern that we have here is, will some screen readers read like a nested? Will they read title or the title reference list once and then aria label reference list second time?
I don't think they will, because like if you have a this is just a digression, but if you have a details tag, the summary inside of there gets role button. So if you put a heading in there, if you put any kind of other role inside of a button annihilates all of the descendants roles. So in theory, it should never really hit that.
Okay, that's reassuring. Okay, yeah.
But I think like one of the main comments that probably needs to be in this issue would be that it's hard for me to type and think at the same time. Would be that the motivation was based on automated checks. It said like IBM equal access checker, and then looking at the accessibility tree, we're gonna want to test on like at least one screen reader maybe. So if this is working and if there's a place where this is working and there's a binder or a Jupyter Lite, add me as a reviewer and I can try it on a screen reader or two.
Okay, I will make sure that I review that on all the other changes first, and that the binder is ready and built, and then
Great.
we'll tag you.
Yeah, no, this is exactly the same manual testing struggle we had where in the past, right, Mike? Where it was like we have like 5 or 6 PRs going on at the same time that kind of need to be tested in concert with each other.
Yeah. Okay. And we've tagged you before on this one. So there was a suggestion to change a role of cells because it wasn't like, because we are setting feed on the container which contains cells.
That's not the right. That is the wrong role.
Yeah.
That got in there with an oversight.
Yeah. So I think we both agree in that case that feed role is not appropriate either.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't try to make cells articles. And instead we should explore a different role for the container which contains cells.
So yeah, the approach that I have taken. So right now, let's say we change this to region, and there's an ARIA label on it, and you have multiple notebooks open. Then every region that's open, every notebook that's open is going to say cells, 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 cells. So the role that has when you put an ARIA label on a region, it becomes a landmark. If there's no ARIA label on a role region, then it just kind of exists. But once there's an ARIA label on it, then it's a landmark that people can go to. So if there is if all of these are like untitled 1.ipynb cells, untitled 10.ipynb cells, then I could quickly navigate between notebooks as a screen reader user. And there was one last thing I wanted to say on this. The other option that I've been using, so like landmarks are one navigation technique. The other navigation technique would be to make the cells a list, which is what I've been finding very effective with screen reader users that I've been testing with. So if it was, instead of row region, it was row list, and then every cell inside of there was row list item, then a screen reader user could navigate to their lists and then find untitled 1.ipynb cells, untitled 10.ipynb cells, and then it would go to a list, and then they could navigate the cells by just hitting like I or going to the next item. So those are the two options. The last option is to be able to allow a screen reader user to choose either of them, which actually isn't that difficult.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I will. What I will do is open a new issue to summarize what you just said and propose that we change this existing crawl feed and possibly evaluate whether one or the other is better, or just provide a setting for this.
Yeah, it might be like one of the first like real screen reader settings we have, right? Because if you do this, it is a completely non-visual move, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, we're really thinking about the screen reader configurability here.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, looks like Dan is up next.
Yeah, thanks. So I just added a couple, these aren't my issues, but just random topics that have accessibility and needs discussion tag for JupyterLab. First issue is actually opened by Andre. I think this issue is in the extension manager. There's this question mark here, but it's not clickable. And so then there's a discussion here, if we go down, about concerns about what that represents and broken environments and I guess what do we want to show there and what warnings do we want to provide to the user. I guess, does anyone have any thoughts on what this question mark should do, or like what we should warn the user about related to like breaking environments and installing extensions?
What does it do? So you have to hover over it now?
It doesn't seem to do anything to me.
It
It
should
says,
show you the environment path. Maybe you need to wait a little bit longer depending on your browser, but we might also, yeah, it
there you go,
shows.
yeah.
So from an accessibility perspective, this would fail perceivable because there is text information that's hidden in the title that wouldn't actually be on the page. So I could never control F and find that search path. So I would suggest some redundancy in the text if it needs to be there.
The reason why we should show that information somewhere in some way is because if user starts the JupyterLab in, say, Conda environment, and they start installing things into the base environment, this manager uses pip, it will very likely break the environment. So they shouldn't do that, or we should find a way to make the installation respect Conda, or I don't know.
Maybe that's good information to have in there. Like, is there, are there issues or concerns or frequently asked questions you can ping to? Because that's a very real confusing thing for someone.
Yes, and on macOS there are also now issues because the paths seem to be amiss for some reason. So maybe we should. This is a design question. Should we have two warning sections? One warning and I don't know. Should user be prompted to choose the installation path? That might be out of their control.
Is there a way to be like, hey, something might be suspect?
Yeah,
Like, could you
that would
throw
be
a
the
warning?
best. Yeah, we could certainly know that we are in a conda environment. We wouldn't know if like is installing is inside conda always dangerous? I don't think so. It often is.
So I
But
could see,
certainly on Mac, if there is a mismatch between the path where the server is and where the path for installation, because of some Jupyter core paths, that then we could show a warning.
yeah, so maybe there's like a color element to this. Like maybe there's like a green or a yellow or something like that. That could indicate this, but nevertheless, it seems like there needs to be some more text on the page to make this perceivable. It might be hidden at first. It's just that if it's on the page somewhere, then it hits accessibility testing.
Yeah, but potentially, like maybe this information is only needed if people install extensions, like
Yeah.
when you click install the first time.
Yeah, things to know. Warning, just keep in mind or something.
But then when they are looking at this installed section and they don't see something that they installed because they installed it in a different environment, that could be like also useful to show this path then.
Right. And even being able to like maybe put in a path just to see what's in there.
Right. Does anybody have anything else on this issue? Think we can move on to the next one.
All right. So this is menu bar not accessible using the tab key. I think this is if you go to the file menu or click on it and then hit tab, it does not, I guess it's the cycles off of the file menu. Yeah, it says menus accessible using keyboard tab. Man, we're doing a lot with tabs today, so that's good.
So you can't tab. It's that I'm in lab right now, so it's just saying you can't ever tab to file the file menus.
Yeah, it doesn't. I guess I'm not sure if you can get to it by tabbing. I don't know, but
I
I don't.
can't. Yeah.
Go ahead.
It should be possible. Now, what is that they exactly say in the issue? Could you just open the instruction? The element should be tabbable. Sorry, I still do not understand that exactly.
I thought you tabbed to the file browser, the file menu when you were demoing, Mike.
Yeah, I think.
What version are they on? Because on 4.4 I can't tab to it.
I can tab to file and then tabbing again gets me out of the menu bar. I can use arrows and I can use enter to navigate the menu.
Yep. That's the expected pattern, and that's what worked in 7.3 last I checked. But in 4.4 I can't tab to, in Notebook or Lab, I can't tab to the menu bar.
I can.
I know, but remember you're on 7.4, you're on 7.3, and I'm on 7.4.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't test Notebook. I can in JupyterLab for 4.4.2. Let me just check 4.4.3 for yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can tab to it as well.
And now if you press right arrow, yes, you can
Yeah.
navigate, and if you press enter.
Yeah.
So what is the expectation in the issue? And what is wrong?
Confirm that the element should be tabbable. I see this menu section is skipped when using keyboard tab. I don't think that's the case anymore. It doesn't look like it, at least, right?
What version? See, I'm still. They're on 4.3 there. It looked like it said in. Go to that screenshot real fast. Oh, up.
Sorry.
Does that mean they're on? Oh, that's R 4.3.
Yeah.
What do you test? Oh, what are y'all testing the tabbing on? What versions?
4.4.3.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least
So
I think that's
there is
right.
there's something interesting when I'm tabbing from the content and I'm doing Shift tab. I get to the big plus in the file browser, then the sidebar, and then the tab focus kind of disappears for a second. So it goes to something which is non-visible. I have to press Shift tab again, and only then it goes to the menu bar. I don't know if anyone else sees that. Or maybe it goes to the skip main, but it's not
I get
shown
this
for me.
I get this skip to main panel thing in Firefox, at least.
I don't see that. Oh no, I still. It's at the very beginning.
One of the other things you can do to oh no, it doesn't work because of virtual rendering. If you go to accessibility in the dev tools, there's a show tabbing order that'll present this for us, but since we've got virtual rendering, it doesn't work very well.
Okay, should we? It doesn't sound like this needs discussion. I guess I can report that we can't reproduce this.
I can.
Oh, you can?
It's not. I am having the same issue. I'm
Oh.
wondering if there's something about operating systems or something that's going on here. I don't know.
So
But
sorry, what browser are you using?
I'm using Firefox on a Mac.
I was testing Chrome.
Okay, let me go to Chrome.
Done.
I was using Firefox on a Mac as well.
Okay. Yeah, even like when I crack open a blank notebook, I can't tab to the menu bar.
Are you in Notebook or Lab?
Both of them.
Okay.
And like, yeah, I can't really get, like, even if I try and like click on the okay, so if I click on a menu and I hit escape, I've lost, yeah, it doesn't keep, the menus don't keep focus. That's another issue, at least I'm seeing. I don't know if you guys get that. So like, if you click on a cell, click on that cell real fast, Dan, and then go up to click on one of the menu items, like click on view, and then hit escape. Where's your focus? Hit tab. Where's your focus at? Back to the top. Okay. So one of the other issues with this menu bar is I don't think it's keeping focus right. So like when you hit escape, it should go to view, and then you should be able to left and right arrow to edit or run respectively. So if you can't do that, then oh, you can do that now. Okay, that worked there. Okay. I don't know. It's different on my machine.
Can you try on jupyter.org/try?
This one
Because
tabs. Yeah.
are you using that?
This one works.
I
One you
wonder
just sent.
that there
mean
is
here?
an extension interfering.
Mm.
I meant if you open a notebook and then go to, sorry, if you open a notebook in JupyterLab interface, in the link that I've sent, I hoped that it would open a notebook directly, but it didn't for some reason. Oh yeah, this one. So I wonder if that's not working. Well, if that is working, then maybe would, I don't know. Could an extension be stealing focus? It
I
should be
don't.
prevented.
So I only have the notebook extension installed and JupyterLab Pigments.
Yeah,
And
that's what I had as well.
I don't think I should have either of those messing it up.
Yeah,
Ideally.
that's true.
Okay, so we're seeing summary is we're seeing inconsistent behavior between computers. Is that right?
Seems like it.
One more version. Think what Firefox version are you using?
Mm.
Because if that's ESR, then maybe if that's not ESR, then I wouldn't
No, mine's like
suspect
the
it to be.
latest, although it says I need a restart, but
Anything
How do
which
you
is
how do you find it?
up at the at Firefox about in the upper left.
In the upper left. Oh, okay. Got it. 138.
so that shouldn't be a problem. A problem could be if that was like 120.
Weird. Weird. It's kind of tough since JupyterLab does a lot of like customization with the tab key.
Okay,
All right, does
anything
any
else we want to talk about that? Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Yes, what I was just going to ask. We have another item on the agenda if nobody has anything else. All right, Rosio, want to take it?
Yeah, I can share that we have a community call coming up next week, and that will take place during this hour. So yeah, we don't have many signups, so if anybody is interested in sharing anything with the community, it would be great to see you on that list of speakers.
Great. Thank you so much for keeping the community calls alive, Rocio. It's really amazing of you.
Uh, Thanks, Tony. Thank you for all the previous work you've done. We've used a lot of that, and hopefully we can keep these going at least once a quarter is the kind of the goal, I think.
Yeah. Solid. I'll see if I can come up with something to share.
Awesome. Thank you.
Maybe maybe I'll have some hex editor to show again. We'll see. All right, I think that's the last agenda item. Does anybody have anything else for the recorded portion?
Your hex editor would be sick if you could use the hex numbers to add color to like the whole thing. So like every 3 hex combinations, background color changes. It would look so cool. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
Right? Like I think you could visually make an art piece. It would be a very randomly generated, noisy piece.
Oh yeah, yeah. So colorize the background of the byte, right? To
Yeah,
match
the
the
bytes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because it's kind of like a windowing of bytes.
Yeah. It would be it'd be really interesting. That would be cool.
Yeah, just a little CSS on what you've already done.
And some like yeah, it could be kind of visually quantitatively kind of interesting too. Yeah,
It wouldn't be functional. It wouldn't be cognitively useful. It would be artistically
it
interesting.
might be. Maybe someone can get a sense of something about the structure of their data through that.
Oh,
But
perhaps. Yeah, if
yeah.
there's repeating bytes and stuff like that, but it really depends on the compression there. I do think that it'll like visually stick in people's heads a little better than text.
Yes. Yeah. That's really interesting. Thanks for that.
So I actually have one more thing.
Go ahead.
That's a security advisory on Jupyter Core. This affects Windows users, and they are recommended to upgrade to Jupyter Core version 5.8.1. Now the security advisory still says 5.8.0, but 5.8.0 is known to break Jupyter server, so maybe don't upgrade to 0.0. I've pasted the link in the chat and added it in the notes. The details are under the link.
Thank you, Mike. All right, last call. Anybody else have anything before we turn off the recording? All right, everybody brace yourselves.